No,
You got a keyboard?
no, we have it.
Working.
It's like here, but I'm just not using it yet.
It's not that easy.
Hey, Chief.
What are you doing? How are you?
Nice to
How
see
we
you.
doing?
Chief's fault.
Chief, what's going on?
I skipped for a second.
We don't have any corral.
Wait, said it just,
We don't have any corral.
there we go.
Mm-mm.
Is Comcast out in the TV now too? I'm gonna murder this company. This company is just like, I have zero patience left now.
I keep seeing it for a second.
Oh,
There it is. Okay.
Okay, good, all right. They can live another day.
Do you have any condolences to anyone? You wanna tell cable that we're ready?
I think we just yelled. Cable, we're ready.
They have,
Voila. Right, great technology.
So we're gonna start the meeting at 6:31. Could we all stand, please, for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So this meeting is being audio and video recorded. It is on Channel 9 and will be shown again this week, I believe, and it will also be uploaded to YouTube. So our first, any public input?
Mr. Chairman, I had several residents contact me relative to the Town Governance Study Committee that we talked about last week. And what they're looking for is more information about exactly what they're going to do. I told them we talked about appointed versus some elected positions, and we also talked about changing the name of the Board of Selectmen to Select Board or some other designation. And they said they were aware of that, but they're looking for more information. So we need to put something out there so that there's interest. It's just that they're not
right.
sure.
I've had 2 people submit their
Applications.
information, you know, just, hey, I'm interested. If those people want to reach out, I can have a one-on-one conversation with them if they have specific questions. But yeah, I can put something together. I did stick something on Facebook, but I know that only gets a select
Yeah, I
population.
told them that they could submit a letter of interest, fill out an application here, or go online and get the application.
Sure.
So if any of those people who spoke to me are watching tonight, you can get in touch with the town administrator, and she can give you more information. But that was pretty much what we covered at the meeting, so
Great, thank you.
you're
Good
welcome.
to hear there's interest, though.
I know,
Yeah.
absolutely, like,
Yeah.
quite a bit. There's only 7 seats, so.
Right, and it's a committee that we've never had before. It's totally new assignment, and I think it's safe to say, for anyone who signed up for a committee that is still here, we think this is a committee that will eventually do its work and go away.
Never. Just kidding.
I'm thinking of the Cemetery Commission,
Yeah.
and one particular person that
Yes.
I convinced to,
Yes. You told me there'd be 1 or 2 meetings a year.
yes, 1 or 2 meetings a
Yeah.
year, yes, so.
1 or 2 meetings a month. So
Thank
is
you.
there anybody here from Elite Collision Garage Repair? Are you Stephen LaPlante? Yeah. So we have a request for a license.
Sure, just some quick background. During a previous public hearing, it came to light that we're not licensing garage repair facilities. We decided that we are going to start doing that. And we actually had a new business sort of roll into this very timely, so you're a bit of our guinea pig. But we have set a fee last meeting. We talked about our procedure, which is what we're doing tonight, a public informational meeting for people to ask any questions of you. You get a little plug about your business to our many subscribers here. And we do have just one question in looking over the application is at the end, at the very bottom of that, and I'll let Karen speak to this a little bit, but the repair shop number, so you will need to get that before the license is even valid, the license from us.
I thought I had to,
Is it chicken and egg? So, okay. So, what we will do is hear everything. If they so choose to grant the license, you would do it pending the repair plate, but then you'd get a copy of that to send in with your
oh,
paperwork.
you're talking about the repair shop number?
Right.
Repair.
Repair shop number.
Okay.
So you just basically have a copy of the license sent in with your paperwork, and then the state understands that you're in the process of getting the license with the town.
Okay.
That's all that means.
Mrs. Goulart, do you have any questions?
I was just looking for the street location of the business.
It is 1940 County Street,
1940.
County Street?
Oh, okay, there's an existing business there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Brett, do you have any
I
questions?
actually don't have any questions for Elite Collision, but I do have a general question. Is this application only for new repair garages, or will the current auto body repair shops also be required to do this application as well?
Current as well. So we're partnering with the police department to get a list of just about everybody, and then we will be approaching them, explaining the situation, and going forward. This just happened to literally roll in
No,
at the same
I
time.
think we just approved this last week.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Nope, I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
So
Thank you.
Have they been in business already? Did you say they've started their business?
No, this is a new business. Am I correct?
So you haven't started yet? I have no questions. Do you have any comment?
Yeah, typically, the fire department and I report to the board
Sure.
our findings. So this location always had this type of business at it. The property was purchased by Derek maybe a couple of years ago at this point, and then Steve has become involved. But the facility historically has always had a repair garage at that location. Both myself and the fire department have been there on numerous occasions. Everything is current. We haven't had any complaints or problems with that facility, so I don't have any reason why this license should be granted.
You think it's reasonable to have 12, a maximum of 12 cars?
Yeah, I did visit the site. There's more than enough room, off-street parking. There's also some parking that's not visible to the public, so I think it's more than adequate, yes.
Anybody have any concerns? No? Someone wants to make a motion?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we conditionally approve the garage repair license for Elite Collision at 1940 County Street, contingent upon receipt of the repair shop number, correct?
Right.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, ayes have it. So
Welcome.
what is the process for them now?
So Karen will type up a license, we'll leave it out for the selectmen to sign it, and then we'll give you a copy of it. You'll put that with your paperwork for the state, and then once you get that, you'll come visit us again. And then you pay the fee as well, which is $75. They said it last week. Okay, for the year. Thank you, welcome to Dayton.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and good luck.
Thank you.
Now, question, do
Sure.
I have to apply for that as well? The
No.
permit once I'm already existing?
Oh, for your, I'm sorry.
I got the upstairs building, we do repair
Yes.
work, but just automotive repair, not collision.
Yes, but we're gonna sit down with all the existing, because we recognize that it's a change. So we wanna sit down and, answer your questions and kind of walk you through what's happening. It's easy when you're new, right?
Thank you.
Thank you. So we really can't go to the second item, right, because it's not 6:45. Do we have to wait for 6:45?
You can ask the gentleman present if they are amenable to moving early. Is that okay?
Yes.
Suppose somebody was planning to come in at 6:45 too.
Specifically to talk about this?
That would be my concern.
This is really not like posting a hearing. These are just, this is a time
This is to
guideline.
respect, yeah,
So
their
you're trying
time.
to, but if the next item were posted as a hearing at 6:45, then we couldn't do that at all, but yeah, you can move to the next item.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the next item is from Chief McGee and Chief McDonald about a public relations proposal. Everybody on the board have an opportunity to take a look at it?
Yes.
So, recently, for myself, at a Bristol County Chiefs meeting, there was discussion on, some public relations, stuff. We actually had Mr. Guilfoyle come to our Chiefs meetings several months ago. He did a presentation on what he provides for a service. At that time, I didn't really think much about it. But recently, there's been some stuff, most recently was a bus crash that was in Berkeley. And Berkeley being a small town like us, I kind of went over and spoke to Chief Fournier to see what he thought about how everything went. And he said the biggest thing that was, the biggest plus for him is when the crash happened, the City of Taunton Fire Chief Bradshaw, reached out to Chief Fournier and said, listen, I pay for this gentleman. It's gonna get hectic with all the news people calling you. You can use my guy, which was very nice of him to do. So Chief Fournier did, and he said that just being able to hand that off to somebody and get the support that he needed to deal with the media was huge. Mr. Guilfoyle came in, he took some statements from Chief Fournier on what had happened, how the whole thing went, just basic information, and put it out to all the news media, every Channel 12, Channel 7, all of them. They're able to do that in one whack. For us, and I won't speak for the police chief, but when something happens in town and Channel 7, Channel 4, Channel 12, they're all calling the police station, the fire station, they're looking for statements from us. I don't feel that there's good consistency there. I would prefer to be able to have somebody that I can just say, this is what happened, put it out to everybody, and it's all one statement instead of me picking up the phone at 10 o'clock in the morning and again at noontime. Maybe I had a little more information that I'm giving to somebody else and not to the next guy. The other thing is as you're probably seeing here, they do websites, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these things. And the plus side of it is Mallory, when we sat with Mr. Guilfoyle, once you post one thing to a website, it gets put out to all the other stuff that's attached to it. So you can put one statement on your website and it's gonna get posted on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's the same post, it's the same information going out to everybody. So all the social media accounts are getting the same information at one time. To me, we don't have a Twitter account right now for the fire department. We don't have an Instagram account. We have a Facebook account that's run by our own personnel, and they do a good job with it. I just think that we could be a little better getting information out, and I think this is a means of doing that and being real consistent.
So it says it's good for a year, but is it also for at nighttime and at weekends? Because there's an extra charge for nighttime and weekends in addition to the...
So it is, yes. If you had something, they on the weekends, actually, I'm actually already in their email chain. Come Friday night around 4 o'clock, I get an email from them, and they state who the on-call PR person is. So, and they give the phone numbers and contact information. So if something happened over the weekend, this is the person you call. If it's at nighttime, just during the week, there's a region person that's just for this region. You would just contact that person at night.
But is that an additional cost?
So he talked about this in our meeting, that, if it's labor intensive, he's gonna charge. But if it's like quick talking points, like he seemed very reasonable in the way that he would run that aspect of it, because of course, things happen in the week, I mean, things happen. So it does say in the public relations package, it lists 24/7 availability for work or direct in-person response for incidents or crises. And they talked about if they could send off a story, they can do it remotely. If they have all the press contacts there, they can easily do that from their home. But if they have to come on site, that's time, that's them leaving, that's them sending something, so they would probably charge. We did ask that question. And if I can back up for just one, when I met with him, I know like the knee-jerk reaction is, oh, when the bad thing happens, we respond to the press. I like to use the press for positive things because there's a lot that goes on here during the day, and we need help getting the message out. Facebook is great, but it's only reaching those on Facebook at that time due to algorithms and all of that. So we rely on people sharing our information. Some notices are very popular and some are not. An example of this is the Board of Health's curbside textile program, which we announced here and have been announcing. We did announce on Facebook, we did put it on our website, and people are still not aware of what this program is, what you can put in it, in the bags, and how often they cut. Like, there's still questions. So this is something that we could use. This is a platform we could use to get the good message out, the program messages out. Dayton 101's coming up. What is that? Who can come? Who's going to be there? So there's a lot of proactive things I see that we can use with it outside of just your emergency response, which is, beneficial as well, not to take away from it. But we could use this for other aspects of the town as well.
So, okay, sorry, I didn't know. I want to abide by the rules. So this wasn't my original question, but you raised a point. This proposal, I'm using that word for lack of a better word, but the proposal that was submitted to us seemed specific to police and fire.
Right.
It seems like you envision this service being used for the town in general. Is that correct?
So I asked that question about the pricing, is this only for the police and fire? And a lot of towns are only using it for police and fire, but when I look at this, I see how the whole town can benefit. Like the building, and I'm sorry, because you're right here, it's making me think of it, but he has a kiosk coming up where you can go and visit the office, look your property up, and find out everything you need to know. That is perfect for a real estate agent. I mean, that is like Mecca with everything right there. So how do we tell people we have this? Through meetings, of course, through our website, through Facebook, but we're only going so far because it's on-staff personnel, and we can't just sit and update Facebook all day long. These people do that for us, if we, that kind of thing. So I just see the opportunity for the whole town to benefit and not just police and fire.
I have another clarifying question.
See if Mrs. Goulart has.
What's the package price we're talking about for let's say, I don't know if it's all-inclusive, but for good coverage across the town departments?
Town-wide, right?
I like the idea that other departments can put things on there.
This
Or
price
events and
proposal is
whatever.
town-wide, so it's $8.99 a month, which is about 10,000, what did we say, $10,800. Town-wide, my first thought was a third comes from fire, a third comes from police, no offense, spending your money, and a third comes from town administrator. And we can kind of divvy up costs fairly easily that way, where not one budget is being hit with professional technical, which would be substantial. He sort of did this à la carte menu here where we have these options, and maybe we roll out things in piecemeal if we like it. Maybe we just try it on, see how it fits. And he did seem willing to work on the price, if that was a hiccup.
So it says up to 6 press releases written per month. So there's going to be an additional charge if we have more than 6 then. So we
But
have to-
what is happening per month that we would need 6? Like, you know what I mean? No, I know. I mean, I can find stuff,
Yes.
but like, I would pick and choose based upon, okay, I have 6 slots available. I'm gonna save 3 for public safety just in case. And then I would roll out, the building commissioner's kiosk for 1 month, and then, the textile program for another, and Dayton 101, and kind of the same thing that I'm doing now. But more professional.
I don't mean to interrupt, but that's press releases he's doing for us. Mallory can still go onto the website and put out a release on her own, and it goes out to all those other Twitter, Instagram, and then we're not gonna get charged for that. So once it's set up, it's accessible for us to use internally, police, fire, and the town.
So I have two questions. My first statement is, they say up to 6 press releases, but I think a press release is a very specific thing, and it's written a very specific way, and it sounds like if we asked this company, if we were to go with this company to promote a positive event, since that's a separate bullet point, that tells me that that might be a separate thing covered under the cost that is outlined here. My other question that I had was, are points 2 police and fire websites and point 3 town news and events portal separate charges above and beyond the $8.99 per
Yes.
month? Okay, so that price, for example, for the police and fire websites of $3,500 each is in addition to the $8.99
Yes, but it's
a
not,
month?
it's not
But that's
like
a one-time.
contingent
One-time.
rule, it's one time, but
It's
it's
not
not like
contingent upon
you
the
have
other.
to do all of this. This is,
Okay.
that's what I mean by à la carte, like
Its
you
own
can just
thing.
choose.
Okay,
I know that they are both interested in the website thing. I flat out said, we've just redone our website and we like it, but I did like the idea of this news portal, because there's really not a great spot on our website
correct.
to show the news. It's just not there, and they would help us do that. So I liked that, but am I dying over the need for that? No, I would much rather have the service, if I needed to pick and choose. I would much rather have the continual service than the news portal, and then we can think about that later.
I actually don't have a problem, Mr. Chairman, with the number 2, the websites, and the reason is because, as I understand, if the fire department, so the police department has its own kind of external website that they maintain, but you can link to it from the town website. I guess my suggestion would be to my colleagues to support number 2, simply because they have to maintain those websites, as I understand, in-house. So we are taking public safety personnel and asking them to maintain the website. So this would be getting the personnel back to, doing their public safety work rather than having to maintain the website. So I think that that's actually a really good suggestion. Do we know of any other company that might do this cheaper? Has anyone looked?
Well, we haven't vetted them because we didn't really know how you felt about the idea. They tend to really target a municipal organization, and we know them based on references. They have Easton, they have Andover, who both communities have undergone some significant mega news stories recently. They handled both of them. They have Taunton, who's pretty happy with them. And a lot of the communities actually in the Sursage group had them as well.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Canton,
Chief McDonald?
Yeah, a couple of things on that. One, I think it's gonna be a big thing, because when something comes in, very emergency type of situation in town, the dispatchers are busy. They're dealing with us, the police, the fire, building commission, whatever it is. And now, once the news hears this, they're calling the station. Now the dispatcher's gonna pick this up, they're gonna ask, well, what's going on, what's the story, can you give us information? They don't have time for that. They're doing their job to make sure that we want. And I think that having this is gonna be a big help for them too. I'm pretty sure that a lot of surround towns use it, that I know of. But same thing, when we're on scene, who shows up? The news station. Next thing you know, they're coming over here. What's going on? Well, we wanna talk to you. Well, you don't have time right now to talk to them. And I think having this, it'll give them some information, and it'll be a big help.
I guess I would like to see it tighten up a little bit exactly what the contract is gonna say as far as costs and stuff.
Well, we have that.
Well, they implied that the weekend may not be that expensive, but I wanna make sure that we're getting everything that they're saying we're getting. I wanna see the contract, I think, before
You
I
mean
actually.
delineate like what night weekend work would mean to
Yes, and
to
what,
them?
is it after 4 o'clock, as was mentioned? Is it 5 o'clock, 8 o'clock? Because it can get real expensive, but I do support it, and as far as looking for other companies, I do respect their opinions on, especially Chief McGee's, who's met with him.
Mhm.
And I have spoke with Lieutenant Nichols from Taunton PD, who's their public information officer, and he swears by these guys. He says there's no more professional person than you're gonna deal with. And they're also good for, he had told Mallory and I about a story that happened with the police department, I think it was in the western part of the state, and the news was coming out to make a story, but the police chief felt like there wasn't a story there. So he had called Guilfoyle and spoke with them and said, you know, Channel 5's on their way to my station, there's not really a story here, so they said to him, well, what's going on? So he kind of laid out the situation. Guilfoyle called Channel 5, told them what was going on, and they said, okay, we're gonna call our news van back because there's really not a story here. So if we can prevent that in this town, I think it's huge. There's a lot of stuff that goes around on Facebook that, you know, we really shouldn't be out there and is not necessary, and if we can halt that, I think it's a good thing.
You don't really wanna, maybe you might say the wrong thing, not the right thing, and you know, and sometimes that's not good, you know. Depends what the situation is too. Maybe you don't wanna say a statement on it. I just don't have nothing to say right now or something. At least, you know, you can, like Chief said, he put it together and give them something, you know.
You end up paying for their network is what happens, and their relationships, because they know somebody at Channel 5 or Channel 10 just by being in the industry, and so you can tamp down a non-story like the chief's talking about. So I found a lot of value in it. I don't know, I mean, my best way to answer your question is probably to get a copy of the contract from another community and see what, if, you know, if they'll let me have that, and see what their nights and weekends policy is. But we are in the driver's seat still. Like, we can choose whether or not we contact them based upon what is happening. And I don't believe these two operate frivolously, and I think that they would use good judgment in contacting them.
Would this help you in, as the
Emergency
the
preparedness.
emergency management?
Sure, yeah.
They could be, I know that the police chief was designated the information officer, but this would work well if we had this service to help both of you. Another concern I have is, do they deal with information that's out there, however it got out there? Somebody overheard somebody, or somebody put something on Facebook that is not true. Would they respond? In other words, if you saw, or somebody said, hey, chief, there's a story out there that's saying this, you could contact them and say, this needs to be corrected, this is not true, this is false, or whatever.
Yeah.
And what happens if they show up at your door, like a lot of them do, as we experienced in this room a while ago? You'd also deal with, they would also help with that, you know, the thundering hordes at the door with the mics.
They provide you talking points, if you'd like, and they will help you anticipate the questions that might be coming, so you can formulate what you want to say, what you don't want to say. I find incredible value in that, right? We're not talking to the press every day. We don't know what their general question is going to be.
Not only that, I know that the Selectmen's office in the past has actually sent in written responses to questions, and what came out in the paper was not the answers that were given. There was more opinion than fact, because the fact, quite frankly, was kind of dull and boring. I do support this. I would like to see an active contract, and if a community who's willing to share a contract could also say, here's an example of a couple of instances. I think that would be good, but I think this is a good idea. Whether we pick and choose, or whether we say, okay, we're gonna take this package, and we're gonna add this, or whatever. I think this is good.
I agree, and I also am in favor of the websites for the police and fire, so the additional monies, obviously, but I'm in favor of that also. That will come out of their budget, the website?
Yep. Got the ambulance.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I definitely want
We'll
the
find a way.
language cleaned up because, for example, so I think we should do all three, but it's a little misleading. For example, number 3 is a $6,500 one-time fee. If we have this company for 100 years, does that mean we only pay them? So there's just a
Yeah.
little bit of clarifying.
Well, it's 99 per month, outside of the, well, I mean, this is just a proposal. This was just, this is what we offer, this is what we can provide. So this, we
Correct.
didn't agree to anything. We
I
said,
understand.
we'll take it to the board. But I think, you know, we'll, chat with him and explain your comments tonight and see what he has to say.
It sounds like the board's favorable, but we just need,
So you don't
some
wanna-
specific answers. that's
You wouldn't
all.
want a motion then to?
I would love a motion.
Someone want to make a motion? I suspect you're looking for the permission to sit down with them and come up with a contract and bring it back to the board, I guess that's.
Sure, I just didn't think you were ready for that because you have a few outstanding questions, but if you wanna make them, I'll do
I
whatever.
think the contract would delineate the questions that the board needed clarifying on.
I'll make a motion that we move ahead with the project and that the town administrator get us a copy of an active contract with a couple of instances when that community actually used it, and that the actual awarding and signing of the contract take place after we have a chance to review that. But I don't want this whole thing held up. If all of this could be moving forward, we get another look at this, and then we can vote on actually doing it.
Sure. Great.
I will second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? No abstentions? It passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
7 o'clock.
Are we on
Not
time?
right on time?
No.
Yes.
Presentation by the Building Commissioner for office space.
Oh, wow.
You're up.
This early, right?
I know, is it shocking?
So you're able to put that in, this is your notes then?
Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, Diane. I didn't actually prepare anything tonight. I wasn't present at last week's meeting, but as I understand it, the town administrator presented some options to you for this building to free up some space or crowdedness in existing departments.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is one of your goals, right? One of your,
So, Administrator Aaronstein and I, along with Selectman Zagrafis, tried to identify what we thought were the most critical areas here in Town Hall. As a precursor, though, I will say that next door, I had a vision for certain departments being located under that roof, and that's turned out to be logistically a little bit difficult. And I'll be somewhat selfish. My space that I'm in is completely, it's just tight. I can't move around. I'm surrounded by cabinets, file cabinets, plans, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it would behoove us to try to move one office out of that building and spread out the ones that are there. In addition to myself, the Board of Health is also a little crowded with 2 people in one space. They have to walk sort of into each other just to move around the office. So with that in mind, I'll go into the details. The other critical areas here in this building were the cable office needs to be expanded. They actually have expressed interest in creating a studio where they could do filmings for public relations series or the like. We also need to get the server out of the restroom. That would have a designated area within the new cable expanded, or expansion of the cable room, which along with the other electronics would also be climate controlled, so we wouldn't have any issues with server overheating, et cetera, et cetera. So in order to do that, the cable office is gonna absorb the conservation area and part of that meeting room. The part of that meeting room that they would absorb is the corner that doesn't get used for meetings. It's where we had some temporary office space. ZBA was there, right? And I believe the Board of Health was there too as well. So the meeting room would stay in its footprint exactly the same size with the exception of that corner. When the cables expanded, they would have a new soundproof studio, server room, expanded area for equipment, and they would have a high-efficiency heat pump mini-split unit for HVAC purposes. The temperature in that room is not controlled. It's
hot down there.
obscenely hot in there at times. So, that's much needed, especially for the longevity of the electronics equipment. The other area of concern was the clerk's office. There are too many people working in one area. The chief and I have gone in there, we kind of look around, and we try not to look around too much, because there's cables, there's stuff going everywhere. So we understand that we're trying to do the best we can, but it's time that we separate two of those offices and give people more room to work. So how are we going to accomplish all this? I've talked to the Conservation Office. They've been reluctant about moving next door, but they told me because they don't hold office hours, they would have no problem moving next door if we created more space with one of the offices moving out. They also told me that they would go through their files, consolidate, so that they wouldn't have so much stuff to bring over, which would certainly help things, especially from a space perspective. The clerk's office would be split up between the clerk and the treasurer. To do that, the accountant will have to be relocated. So the accountant will be removed from their space, and the clerk will move to the end of the building. We have to reconfigure the door, the wall, the window space there. And logistically, you have the collector and the clerk that would share the safe area, or the vault. So I think that would work out pretty well from an efficiency standpoint, as well as logistical standpoint. So downstairs, the accountant would need to move downstairs, and we would need to house 3 departments downstairs in the existing space, not including the cable area or the meeting room. To do that, the existing space that the sewer department currently encompasses, all the walls will be reconfigured, and we would create at least 2 offices there, one for the sewer department and one for the planning and the Board of Appeals. The town accountant would then take over the planning department's office without any modification, because there are 2 employees there, and she has an absorbent amount of files that need to be, so she needs a bigger footprint. The last thing that accomplishes, which is another critical problem, is boards and committees meeting in office areas. That really shouldn't be happening. It's not under my purview, of course, but I have the opportunity of being in many, many different town halls, much more than most people. I don't see anybody meeting in rooms. So we're one of the few that do. By making the office space accommodate the office work, that's going to require everybody to use the meeting room. And we have 3 of them now. We have this one, the one downstairs, and of course we have Old Town Hall, which can accommodate almost 100 persons. So I think when you look at that collectively, monetarily wise, it doesn't take a lot of money to accomplish that. Logistics, I happen to excel at it. I think I have a way where we can keep offices running, moving things through phases. But I certainly think it's something that we could accomplish even prior to the end of the fiscal year, with perhaps a more, I wouldn't say intrusive, but maybe changing carpeting or doing things like that post-fiscal year if the monies were appropriated. The carpeting in this building is deplorable. So I think if you give people a new workspace, you make workspace that is adequate, efficient, and you put in some new carpeting here, I think the overall work area or work atmosphere will certainly improve.
You have any questions?
I think you did a really good presentation. It was a really nice discussion that we had last week about this. My first question for you, Mr. Commissioner, would be, would it be possible to do the carpeting after the sewer commit? So first of all, let's back up. The sewer, where the sewer commission meets right now, where their office space is actually different carpet than what's even out here. So that is, you know, not aesthetically appealing. The other thing I would say is it possible to do the carpeting after making that office into 2 offices, or would it be harder to do?
No. The carpeting in those new office areas, including the cable area, if they choose to have carpeting, would all be done at the same time the walls are constructed. So the carpeting that I was referring to in the latter would be the remainder of the building, which I think is important. So those new office areas would all have new carpeting installed. Now, certainly if there was an effort to change all the carpeting and there was support for that, then I would also say before we move any offices from one place to another, that we change the carpeting. So for instance, before the accountant moved downstairs, we would change the carpeting in the planning office. Before the clerk moved to the end unit, we would change the carpeting in that office. And then, you know, sure, it comes at a cost, but, you know, it's a smaller cost based on carpeting in the whole building. That was more what I was referring to that could happen after the new fiscal year if we wanted to appropriate the funds. Because I think there's a way that we can get this started in this fiscal year using some monies that are available in other accounts with some transfers. So it wouldn't necessarily have to wait for any special articles or an annual town meeting. You know, I'm sure there are gonna be some people who aren't happy with it, but in the end, we're trying to make a building that is fun, is inviting to come to. People aren't running into each other or, you know, hearing anybody, you know, on the next off. I mean, we have desks that are 2 feet apart from one another, so it makes it
Town
difficult.
clerk is in the corner.
Right,
So let's not
exactly,
forget that.
exactly.
Mrs. Goulart, do you have any questions?
I like the idea. I don't see this as being a huge expense. I think the success we've seen with doing Old Town Hall over and how the public has accepted that, and just making a couple of switches back and forth to accommodate various boards or committees, I see that working. I don't see that the, I'll call them renovations or relocations in this building, are going to be costly. I think that certainly the workspace for employees is important, but also the public coming in here to conduct business is important. That's a focus. And, you know, as far as the carpet goes, I think it's original to the building. This interior was not painted from the time the building opened, and it was fresh and clean and everything. When I came here in 2007, the roof was replaced for the first time, and we had leaks in the site. But several years went by, 3, 4, 5, maybe more, and then a crew came in and painted from the sheriff's office, I believe. So the kinds of enhancements or aesthetics in the working environment have not cost a lot of money.
No.
They've really brightened things up, and if carpet has to be replaced in the entire building, both floors, so that it matches and we don't have patchwork, I don't think we can complain about the life of the carpet that is in this building. But I think it's a good idea, and I think it's gonna be less disruptive than when we actually took people out of here and moved them across the yard.
I do. I sort of have a plan worked out where I think I can do it without disrupting the functionality of the departments. I would be utilizing some Fridays, though, to get this stuff done. We can take advantage of the building being closed, certainly for carpeting install, for instance, you know. And if we work that out with a holiday or something, there's ways that we can do it, but we can discuss all that if you want to move forward with it.
Do you anticipate using some of the talent we have in the highway department?
Yes.
For petitions and
Yes.
things like that?
Yes.
You first.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about the accountant being moved downstairs, since the clerk's office, the treasurer, town administrator, and probably Karen deal with the accountant a lot, so it means going downstairs a lot. I'm a little concerned about that, moving the accountant downstairs.
Okay. I think it'll get everybody in shape.
I'll be on the pedometers again.
May I? I think that, so, two things. So I think part of the logic was, even though, yes, the town accountant, every employee sort of is a public service entity, however, we would all agree probably that the clerk and the treasurer and the assessor are like the three, maybe you two, and Mrs. Brady, the Board of Selectmen, are like the main places that people come in when they come in for services. So I guess the thought was, in just strictly services to the public, it would be the least disruptive to have her, to have the town accountant's office downstairs, I guess was the logic behind that.
Actually, well said, and although both levels will be
obviously public spaces. If you look at the departments, the way they're separated, you have to want to go see the Board of Appeals, the Planning Board, or the Sewer Department, when someone else from the town may come in and want to see the tax office, the collector, you know, the town administrator. So they're all on one floor, they're within earshot of one another. So
assessors?
the assessors, right. So that's sort of, to your point, why we thought that was best.
Well, also access to the safe
Well,
is very
yeah, that's
easy between the
the
offices.
logistics part of it is crucial, yeah.
I just have one suggestion to add to this plan. I did speak with the building commissioner about it, but it wasn't brought up at our meeting. We have a few employees that actually utilize this room in the middle of the day for lunch. And if the clerk is going to move where the town accountant currently is, I would just ask that we consider making where the clerk's office is now a bit of an employee break room. I mean, it's not gonna be great because it doesn't have any windows, but it would, you know, not disrupt them if we happen to have a meeting in the middle of the day. They're not displaced for their lunch, and I think that we should have a real employee break room for our
I think a break
office.
room's a good idea. I'm not convinced that's the space because of the crowding that's in there already.
I would agree with that.
But
No, I mean that one little
Yeah,
with the
So
clerk
there is this,
alcove
right.
where
Okay.
Sue sits.
Yeah.
It's
But what I'm
like an
saying
alcove.
is, even that amount of space, I think is important to the 3 people that is
Yes.
I would
Yeah.
agree with that.
still, but is there any space you can make a break room downstairs?
that is possible. The other thing that just came to mind, and I would have to, is maybe if we relocate the mail and the copying machine, we could make the break room right there,
Mm-hmm.
because it's located close to the plumbing. Maybe I could put a sink in there.
Can they swap then?
Right.
Can the mail and copier go
Right.
in that, I'm
Right.
gonna call it an alcove, 'cause that's
That
what
would
it
be
is.
something I'd have to discuss with the
I could get behind.
clerk and collector, but I think that would make more sense, to your
Well,
point.
the problem with moving the copier in, I'm all favor for that as a break room. The problem is that copier has to be accessible, and when those offices are closed, they're gonna be locked. I mean, even last night, I was running back and forth making photos.
So if you just put,
Yeah.
if you make the,
We
like,
can
you
go
finish the wall, that can just be an open,
Right.
like, remove the door, and it can just be an open space.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I like
Right.
that.
There can be a door from the collector's office into that space.
Right, it can lock.
Because Mary's the one who puts the mail in and stuff, so
Right.
that can
Right.
lock at night, like you said.
Right.
Yeah, I think it can be fairly fluid, but I think, you know, if we think about all these points,
Mhm.
it's what I call a design build.
Yes.
As you evolve, you can make it work.
Mhm.
That's the freedom you gave me with next door, and it came out
And
perfect,
that room
so.
backs up to the ladies' room so that you could access
Plumbing.
water and
Mhm.
whatever.
Right.
Okay, right. I just wanted it on the record, we need a break room. So thank you.
Yeah.
So there was a discussion 7 or 8 months ago, somebody came in, I think it might have been Tim Rhines from CPC, wanted a desk with a computer
Right.
that others, that town historian could use and others could use it. Has that been taken into consideration, a spot for?
We've actually supplied that. There's a scrubbed computer downstairs.
What-
The area is not great because the food pantry has really taken over a lot of the space, but there's a desk available, and I call it a public computer, you know, you have to be an authorized user, but, there's a space for them. So,
So,
So where is that? Because I haven't seen that downstairs,
that's where the ZBA and the Board of Health used to be.
but we're gonna lose that space, though, right? Cable's gonna take
No,
that.
I know it, but
Yeah.
But the-
it's
this whole plan-
existing, right,
Man,
probably
You,
towards the end
you
of
could
it.
honestly just put like like some sort of a desk, with the computer right outside, what will be the town accountant's office, like in that off to the side area.
yeah, so actually, that's the real estate I was just thinking about.
That's a
For
great idea.
instance, one of the things I wanna do as part of this is relook at all of those closets in that hallway, because I think most of the stuff in them can go. So if we,
Documents.
right, so if we figure out what we need to save, what we can get rid of legally, and, I can probably create some space, maybe, and I know the term closet, no one wants to be in a closet, but if I configure the walls properly,
Right,
then we could use that space, it would give you a little privacy, yet it would still be a public space. So,
I just wanted to make one last remark.
Sure.
Not a question, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to thank the town administrator and the building commissioner for listening to what we had said. There was sort of an idea originally to do a renovation, but I think that we listened to what the board had said. We listened to the fact that when we originally we're discussing the Old Town Hall restoration, that the whole point, well, part of the point was to make space here and then to reallocate it once that was done. So I just wanted to let my colleagues know that we did listen, and we did take that into consideration. So
Yeah,
thank you.
no,
This will help with you've got two topics to work on.
Help me check it off.
5 years.
He's got it done in 6
Got
months.
the
So,
easy ones, right?
So this will, once the relocation's done, that's gonna help with a lot of what you've talked about doing. And also, there's going to be some upgrades for handicapped accessibility.
Yes.
And this is the time to do it with doorknobs and the way doors open and
Correct.
all of that.
Yeah, all
We
that.
are very much tying in all of these items. Really, it's working out, I think, very well, very timely, and we're able to address the issues that we need to address all together for multiple.
And that,
Projects.
as I remember from our discussion, the tying into making everything ADA compliant is and the renovations, for lack of a better word, that would be required to do that is more of a long-term plan. We're trying right now, again, listening to the feedback from the board, to have like a short-term space reallocation plan, keeping our eye on the long-term plan, which is in part to bring everything into ADA compliance.
Do the stuff we can do now that doesn't
Yep.
cost a fortune, but that will have long-term, be a long-term solution.
Yeah, and don't underestimate the impacts of these changes, because it's gonna actually free up a lot of the congestion and problems that we're having. And moving the offices next door wasn't an option, it had to happen. We've been growing for a long period of time, and we've outgrown the spaces we've in long ago. So I think that was, a part to it, it freed up some space here, and now we need to look at it. But again, to the board's point, I think everybody raised their concerns. I know last time we came in, we talked about additions and everything, that just wasn't tangible, but this is definitely a tangible project, so.
When we're all settled and everyone's where they're going to be, will there be a sign at each building indicating who's located where?
Actually, the town administrator and I did discuss this. There
Okay.
has to be signs, and we're actually talking about LED signs that would have indexes on them, which buildings. For instance, we could put an LED sign there, which directs you to Old Town Hall, which is next door. They can park near the playground and walk there, which promotes healthy living. There's all kinds of things. But I think that would be a good idea. It has to happen, actually. We need signage.
And replace that thing out there. Also, so the public knows, that takes a lot of work to update that thing with the lettering each time someone is like elected.
This is
So this is just more
2019.
practical. You type a new name into the system and
It's
then.
also good for things like community announcements, instead of
Right.
Tom has to cart over that giant
Mhm.
thing,
Mm.
and find a place to set it up. So I like it for, special town meeting's gonna be on such and such a date at such and such a time, community announcements.
Yeah. Again, in most of the town halls I go in, they have those, so, yeah, we'll get
We're
there.
not unique.
We're getting there.
I just want Jonathan Gale to be involved in this also, so that we make,
Yep.
I know you're
Yeah.
familiar with,
Yep.
obviously, the codes,
Yep.
ADA codes, but I just want to maybe know what's going on so that,
So the counter, does it change at this stage or no? Meaning the counter at the clerk?
The counter at the
Office.
clerk's office will have to be compliant, yes. Whether or not the board wants to tackle the
All of that.
collector's office, we can certainly do that at the same time. Not specifically the same time, but we can do it as part of this
Part of the
project.
Okay.
Right,
I'm amenable.
yeah.
So
Okay.
what, and again, we've spoken about our grant for ADA compliance, and really, if we show the state, to your point, Selectman Goulart, this is what we've done on our own, we're committed to this, clearly, it helps us.
Please send
with-
money.
Yes, help us. So, will you be voting on this tonight? Are you ready for that at this point? Are moving the offices, so moving the ZBA, committing to moving the town, like, is this our plan
To accept the plan.
for us to go forward and get the funding, not the funding, but the price estimates and plan out when everything's happening?
See what funding sources are available.
Right.
I would make a motion that we authorize the building commissioner to move ahead with the plans as outlined, and I would like to see a floor plan for both buildings.
You had that drawing from the meeting.
This beautiful, very technical.
Yeah. It doesn't have to, it
Is it to
doesn't have to, it doesn't have to look like something that Roy Delano does for a street project, but just so that we can see what the first floor and lower level of this floor will look like, and what will be over there. That's mine, but just so we have an idea. And the public knows that we'll be talking about this at a future meeting. So I will make a motion that we move ahead, authorize him, the building commission, move ahead with the plan, and that we request a rough floor plan for each building.
I will second that, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? It passes. So you can go forward with the...
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Administrator.
Does that sound good to you, Mr.?
Sure.
We'll make sure everything's in
Get out of
good.
that office would be nice to me.
So are we going with shack carpeting?
Yes,
We're gonna shack, yeah.
absolutely. We're gonna
So
match
is-
the sewer office.
I'm gonna donate that to Tremont Street.
Yeah,
Okay, next item
to the
is
dump, right? Not the animal shelter.
budget review and act on the school budget, district budget. Now, I know they didn't meet last night, so
Correct.
we haven't got firm numbers. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the 250-some pages of their budget?
I actually did, Mr. Chairman.
Chief McKee? Can
Thank you,
just give me
gentlemen.
this?
Say what?
Here's something I thought.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Start taking some
Have a
space.
good night.
Good night, thank you.
No, absolutely.
So we were at the Finance Committee meeting last night, and Chairman Schwartz had indicated that there may have been some changes in the figure for the school budget. I did reach out to the administration there, but there were, I believe everything's still under discussion. So they did not come out with a new figure for us to talk about tonight. The assessment that I have plugged in from the original submission to us is $10,943,552.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yes, of course, $10,943,552 as our assessment.
Is that just operating?
I believe so, yes. Although Jen's little notes, I think, are from 2018, yes. So that, this line underneath, that might be included in your budget document, is from a previous fiscal year. So I don't know where to really go from here. It's not real information at this point. I don't know if you want to make a not to exceed, a vote to pick a number not to exceed, so that we can send that over to the Finance Committee. The school departments, all three of them, have been invited to the Finance Committee's meeting of April 25th. The appointment for them is at 6 p.m. I have sent off that invitation to them. I have not yet heard back whether or not they can make that, but I don't know if you want to wait for that meeting. What is the flavor of the
we're not gonna-
board?
April 25th is
Yes.
DR? It's been
Is
invited?
the school presentation to the Finance Committee, and that is also Dayton 101, which we're all committed to. So that's why I'm suggesting if you want to do a not-to-exceed number, just to indicate to the Finance Committee.
Mr. Chairman, my concern also is that if we don't act in some way tonight, Rehoboth has its town meeting on May 7th, so the fact that we don't have
Before our
solid
meeting.
figures also affects that meeting. But then looking forward, our next meeting that we could possibly vote on this regularly scheduled is the
May.
second Wednesday of May,
Which is
I-
May
May
8th, the
which
day
is kind
after.
of pushing it. So I came into the meeting thinking that we should like take this under advisement or table it until we get a solidified figure, but again, my concern is mostly timing. You have some decisions to make, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I don't have,
I'm just kidding.
You're in the hot seat.
What was the date for the Rehoboth Town meeting?
May
May
7th.
7th.
A Tuesday, not a
I
Monday?
thought it was May 13th.
I heard it was May, I've always heard
What is-
it was
what is May
May 7th. I
13th?
could
A
be
Monday.
wrong.
I thought
May 7th.
It is May 7th?
That's what I had in my calendar.
So I actually thought it was May 10th, but
It's like the
that's a
first
Friday,
week
so
of
that doesn't
May,
make
I
any
think.
sense, yeah.
I think it's the first week of May. Or
So, the operating, when are we gonna get the capital? You gotta remember, in this town, they're together. So the number we vote should.
I don't have good numbers for you. I'm sorry, I apologize. I
No,
mean,
no,
I can't, yeah.
I'm not blaming you. For discussion purposes, I'm willing to make a motion that we tentatively approve an operating assessment of $10,943,552.
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. It's here. I can't read, apparently. The capital,
It's tiny.
it is. The capital is, I thought that said 18, and it does not. It says 19. The capital is 401,795, which would make the operating $10,541,757.
All right.
What are they together?
401,795 for capital,
Yes,
and 10,541,757
757.
for
Together
operating.
being 10,943,552.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm
I
willing to
apologize.
make a motion for discussion purposes tonight, that we tentatively approve the DR operating assessment at $10,541,757 and a tentative capital assessment of $401,795 for a total tentative operating and capital budget of $10,943,552.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
The reason I made that is because last night obviously, we were all at the FinCom meeting, but for the information of the public, what happens at the Rehoboth Town Meeting is going to affect the operating assessment in Dayton. And if in fact, the action of the Rehoboth Town Meeting is to approve less than what has been requested, that number will carry over and cause reductions in Dayton's operating only. It won't affect capital in either town. You've got to pay the mortgage, but the operating will change. And by the time we meet again, hopefully, we will have some indication of action that's been taken, or if in fact their town meeting is the 13th, it'll be the meeting after that. But I think we'll have more direction, and maybe we'll have more information from school committee.
You have any?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I noticed, reviewing this, that a lot of the increases are for textbooks and supplies, which we can't oppose. I mean, I'm in favor of the students getting current textbooks and stuff, so. And the increases for wages was 3% reasonable, I thought. So I'm supporting this budget. Any further discussion?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? No abstentions? The ayes have it. So the budget has been approved, and we suspect it's going to be less than what we actually have before us.
Is the next step that the town administrator reaches out to the superintendent to let him know of our vote? How does this work?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So what I'll be doing
is
is
now.
updating, we have our budget on a Google Doc, we update that with your recommendation. The finance committee will take that into account for their considerations next week. But yes, I will be telling Mr.
Oh, it's not locked, it's just,
It's tough, this door.
Used to be Siemens.
Yeah,
What's that?
Used to be a me.
Which board are you looking at? This is the select.
Forest Street. Once there's some halls or something like that.
There's the planning board downstairs. There were 3 public hearings.
He's supposed to be last week, he can't, he will be next week.
conservation.
Oh, conservation?
Yeah.
Do you know where their meeting is?
Downstairs.
Oh, they're downstairs.
No, upstairs?
Downstairs, right
Take
there.
these stairs and go all the way down the hallway. That's the meeting room.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I have to go outside, eh?
no,
Yeah, can you do the stair right there?
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
I'm sorry about that. What
It's
was I
okay.
just talking? Oh, yeah. I will reach out to the school to tell them that you have supported this figure.
Town administrator's report.
Sorry about that. So this is some exciting news. I feel like this is the fun part of the job. F.C. Anderson, Frederick Charles Anderson, is a Civil War hero who's buried here in Dayton, and he was a recipient of the Medal of Honor. his family has selected the town of Dayton to receive this Medal of Honor, which for me is an incredible act of generosity and a rare and unique opportunity for the town to be in possession of such an item. So their caveat really is that it's on public display for the town and anybody else in the public to understand where it came from, Mr. Anderson's legacy, and what he did for the country, and really to incorporate it as part of the school curriculum when they're studying Civil War and things like that. So they're donating this to us. We are hopeful to have a Medal of Honor ceremony, which right now is scheduled for sometime spring 2020. We will be heavily marketing this. We'll be using our public relations group if that's how it works out. But the veterans agent and myself and Mr. Tim Rhines, who actually was helpful in finding Mr. Anderson's grave, that it was lost for some time, but he found it, and we are working together to create this very special ceremony that will, if we have our way, it will be one day dedicated specifically to this event, to who Mr. Anderson was. There was an event, I believe, in 2012, and there's a picture in there, right, Nancy? So this is along the same lines of what Mr. Anderson already means to this community, and it's really, it makes me speechless that somebody's donating this priceless artifact to us. So I just wanted to give you that update.
Yeah, it really is an honor for the town to get the Medal of Honor. I believe we're going to display it at the
Yes,
police station.
Our plan is to display it at our 24/7 manned, under surveillance always building, front and center in the display case. That's right there when you walk in, with some other items, a write-up explaining who he is and what he's all about and why we have it.
And we're going to have some Civil War reenactors here for the ceremony also. So it's really
Right.
going to be,
So we had originally planned this for October 6th of this year, and we wanted to tie, that date is special because that's the day he died, on October 6th, but the family was unable to attend. So of course, we said, you know, you need to be here. It's back to the drawing board for us, but similar kind of thing. The Minutemen will be there, and maybe not.
no, the Minutemen are from the American Revolution.
that's
These are
right.
our great-grandchildren,
Okay,
fought in the Civil War. So,
I like it.
but some of us will be reenacting the Civil War with our muskets.
And
So
special thanks to,
Along with your flags, we'll have our flags, we should have our flags displayed here
Oh,
for that occasion.
absolutely.
They'll be there.
Absolutely.
Interrupted you.
and I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Hershey. He's really taken the bull by the horns on this, really developed and thrown himself into it to create a very special event. So we're looking forward to that.
I think the relative or relatives that came to the 2012 service were from, I'm going to say North Dakota. I know it was one of the Dakotas.
North Dakota.
And the other thing is, Mr. Ferry went online and found what it should look like. And I've noticed a couple of other communities that have the Purple Heart signs. And I was thinking, on the signs that we said we are going to have as you enter our community, something like a proud Congressional Medal of Honor community would be appropriate, because it's so unique.
It's incredible. I sometimes I just marvel that out of they had heard proposals from the Smithsonian, from West Point, very militant type companies that they were they chose us. They chose us, and in large part because we committed to having it on public display and to talk about Private Anderson and what he did. And something else that's very interesting, I'm such a nerd right now, but Private Anderson was on the orphan train, which you often don't get to talk about when you learn about U.S. history because it's later on. But the orphan train came in well-intentioned, but it did have some pitfalls. But he was an orphan in Boston, was picked up, and then went to Raynham and worked on a farm. There, and then he was probably walking up and down 138. I mean, it wasn't 138 then. But he was around here. So it just, the whole story, I remember when Tim Rhines told me, and I was like, slow down what? Because it was just a little bit too good to be true, or kind of fantastical and full circle. So it's very exciting. It's very exciting to be a part of it, really.
And in the military history of this community, the last thing we did, prior to the discovery of Mr. Anderson's grave, was we actually relocated the plaque that hung at Old Dayton High School that commemorated Silas Talbot, the second commander of the USS Constitution. And that was the last installation next door at the Veterans Memorial. He was probably, we think may have been our first veteran, so to speak.
Oh, wow.
But that plaque survived the fire and was in this room for years. And it was our highway department that found an appropriate big fieldstone boulder and actually installed it, and we had that installation. So the town has quite an interesting history
Right.
for a little town.
That's right. And I think we're going to call upon our veterans to be a part of this ceremony. We've talked a little bit about that, but we have some high-ranking veterans, and we'd like them to be a part of it. So more on that, but just an update. Again, thank you to Mr. Rhines, thank you to Mr. Hershey, and of course, thank you to the family for choosing us, for selecting us. Okay, back to boring stuff. No, I'm just kidding. The policy manual review is coming to an end. I know that you're probably thrilled about that. This is our last section. This was a goal of mine for this year, so we're rounding it out. This is a little bit of a tricky section, which is probably why it's last, but you'll see my recommendations here. The police chief and I are going to be getting together tomorrow to talk about these first two, which is relative to special police officer appointments and police towing regulations and how that process works. So we're going to be getting together to finalize that. My main concern with this set of policies is that they commit the town to doing a certain something, and I'm not confident we're fulfilling the obligations of these policies. I have specific concerns over 401, 402, 404, well, not so much 404, but 401 and 402. Mr. Ferry was asked to comment on this policy. He did so in a very meaningful, thoughtful way, and it seems to be that none of his suggestions were incorporated into the actually adopted policy. Some of his,
Wasn't made for Dayton.
well, what I mean, he commented on it, and then
Correct.
they didn't make the
Because
changes.
they copy and pasted it from another town.
Right. So that's upsetting, and again, makes me distrust the policy that we're actually following it. So that's where my motivation to strike these entirely. Carry on doing what we're doing. We are doing these things. It's not that we're not doing them, but I don't believe that we're doing them this way. And especially to see, and Mr. Ferry's not the only one. I know the town accountant commented heavily on these, and some of the changes, most of the changes that they suggested never made their way into the policy manual. So that's where I stand on these. Plowing private roads brings up the idea about the minimum maintenance information, so I'd like some time to explore that. I know that's something we've talked quite a bit about, but most of these involve me working with other department heads, specifically the police chief, Tom Ferry, the highway superintendent, in some cases, the fire chief, Mr. McGee, Chris McGee, and really dealing with the changes that OSHA compliance and how they might apply to the confined space entry. Then, of course, we have that general, it's called in this general policy, and it's about severability. I don't know if I love that it's separate from the whole thing. I kind of want to add it to all of the policies, but maybe just a disclaimer in the beginning when we do finally have a book, a quote-unquote policy book, have that right in the beginning.
I think it should be in the front, not at the
Right,
end.
right.
If
Look,
you
it's
go through-
9:01. If you made it to 9:01, congratulations, but you're not going to normal.
But not only that, if you see that in the beginning, it clarifies anything you're reading,
Immediately.
as opposed to reading it all and then finding out at the end what the severability clause is.
That's all right.
So you're looking for us to vote to strike these? And,
I'm sorry?
yep, and you're gonna rewrite them and bring them back to us?
Mostly. I'm going to lean heavily on the department heads for their recommendations. I read Tom's, he kept it. I saw them, and I read them, and there's some of these items that relate to work that the Dayton Water District will do. We don't have the ability to tell them what to do, if it's not on our property. So it just doesn't apply to Selectman Zagrafis's point, it doesn't apply. So, I have various recommendations. I don't know if you can make a blanket motion, maybe as presented, because it's not very, everything's different. But yes, strike the quarterly training requirement here, I have to strike, because that can't possibly be townwide. Everybody does a different job, so maybe trainings have to be semi-annually, you know, it's just a broad stroke where it's not really applicable. It's the best I can say. Do you have any question?
No, I think I don't, anyway.
Do you have any
I think
other
you did a good
questions?
job.
I'm ready to make a motion on 401 and 402, and I do have, I do want to then have to just mention the private roads thing, since we were involved in that a while ago. So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we strike policies 401 and 402 as currently written. Rewrite both of these policies for review and action by the Board of Selectmen. And in the interim, follow established procedures.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Objections? Abstentions? Not objections? It passes, yeah.
It's a court of law.
It's not playing
now.
solitaire.
Regarding the minimum maintenance policy, I believe we had drafted a bylaw, but it got rejected
Council
by...
had significant changes, and it was kind of like, I'll do this later.
But it was, as I remember, this arose when we were talking about potentially accepting all the streets and roads in Dayton Rock Park and any other out there. And the recommendation from town council was that we follow a minimum maintenance requirement, and that we develop and submit to the voters for approval a minimum maintenance bylaw. And that's how we resolved the issues in Dayton Rock Park, and the residents were happy with that. So I think we've got to act on the bylaw. If we can get one from somebody.
So I still have all of council's, it was just last year's town
Yes,
meeting.
yes.
So I have all of his stuff, and that's why this is here, you know, work on this, but kind of weave in these other aspects that we've had conversations about all along.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
So we can
yeah.
try to do that for.
Right, right. I know a lot of work had been done on it, and I remember it being discussed. And I remember it was how the issue was resolved for the people that live in the park.
Right.
And I have had contact over the past, since that time period, from somebody who lives on Winfield Lane saying, when is something going to happen? And what I said to her is, the recommendation was the bylaw, but in the meantime, we're going to continue to do minimum maintenance as has been done in the past.
So are we looking for a motion on this then, or not?
I'm actually looking at a motion for all of these to round out the policy manual review, and then in the coming year, we'll be doing quite a bit of policy work.
Someone want to make that motion?
Do you want a motion that, we already did 401 and 402, so do you want a motion on the rest that basically instructs the town administrator to continue to work on these as she recommended?
Recommended.
Is that what you're looking for?
Sure, yep.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we instruct the town administrator to continue working on policy 302, 303, 400, 404, 405, 406, 407, 503, and 901, as she has recommended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Oppose? Abstentions? Ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes my report this
Oh.
evening.
Old business. Discuss the Dayton Housing Authority use of space. I believe that we can't act on this. It's still on
Correct,
the
Mr.
review.
Chairman. Yes, I was under the impression that the Council on Aging had voted on this, and we were just waiting for them to provide the signed copy. That was not the case. It was actually sent to the Dayton Housing Authority's legal counsel, where it sits waiting. So I'm just requesting that we hold on to this. It will appear back on agenda when we get that signed copy.
We don't need a motion to do that, we can just,
Okay, sure, right, you usually move to table
Take
it.
it under advisement.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we table action on the agreement with the Dayton Housing Authority until they respond to us with input.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? No abstention, passes. Second reading of WISP. WISP is the Written Information Security Plan. We read it in full at the last meeting, although this is the second reading, we're not actually going to read it. So it's already been on the website, I believe, so the public has access to it and take a look at it. And at the May 8th Selectmen's meeting, we'll be voting on it. On the old business, discussion of passport stipends for library staff.
Okay, so I was able to talk to Jocelyn and convey some of the questions that you had. She explained that the library is taking passports now. It previously was at Town Hall. The passports are now being processed at the library. They're doing so by appointment so that they can ensure that they can manage the passport applications while also supplying the library services. And a lot of times their programs will take a staff member or two away from the desk. So they wanted to make sure that they can keep up with their services and programs in a high quality way, but also provide high quality service for the passports. So space is also limited. That's another reason that they wanted to, I think we've talked about this ad nauseum of the spatial constraints of the library. So that is a concern. And they're also working to figure out peak demand so that they can better determine different hours if they end up having open hours like that. She indicated to me that the first week, which was the beginning of April, there were 3 processed applications. The second week, there were 9. And in speaking with Jocelyn yesterday, Tuesday, there were 7 already scheduled for this week. So it is school vacation week. If you have children that you're trying to get a passport for, both parents have to be available. So school vacation week was always a big one for families to come in. So I'm sure that increased, but they have been moving right along with it.
Are those figures, Madam Administrator, in line with what we had been doing for passports here?
I don't know. I think that we did much more because it wasn't by appointment. So it was just a steady stream, but I can't emphasize enough how disruptive that was to general office conditions, the whole hallway. If you come in with a family, you were taking up that entire table, writing out your application. So it did, if, it happened to coincide with tax day or, something else coming on, there were quite a few people here in Town Hall. So I actually do appreciate what they're trying to do with this and to ensure a high quality, high level of service for both aspects of what they're doing now.
Do we know how many town employees were involved in those passports?
Well, 4 of them, all 4 are able to process, but I think it was Jocelyn, the library director, is serving as like the 4th backup. So I did talk to her about the passport stipend. I said the budget is for 3 people, and she said she was fine not receiving the stipend if you wanted to keep it at just 3 people being reimbursed, or not reimbursed, I'm sorry, but 3 people being offered the stipend for the work. And
Do we know if they, all 3, will handle an equal number of passports? Because our question was making sure,
Right.
because somebody said maybe you need to pay them by
By the number of
passports,
passports.
because it's not like having
Right.
somebody here all the time.
So I was trying to devise how the stipend came to be originally to make a better decision. And I heard that it was to stay open on Wednesdays because they would stay Wednesday nights, the second Wednesday of every month was the designated passport month. But that doesn't make sense to me because then why would it have been every week and not just the second week of the month that
No,
you.
no, that was,
So I can't seem to find the origins of this
No,
passport.
it was
stipend.
during the day. It was also Wednesday nights for the people that couldn't come during the day, and it was one Wednesday night a month.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. The person I spoke with thought that the passport stipend originated because it was to compensate the people staying on Wednesday nights because one person was part-time and another was full, so the generation of comp time was separate, so that it came, I don't
I
know
don't think
this to
so,
be.
so I'm thinking maybe you should look at collective bargaining agreements, or look at memos, because we did talk to Joe about it.
I would not advise paying per passport.
I also agree with that, because
It needs to be a
I think it would be a nightmare. Every week, the payroll would change, would it be consistent? And I think they're gonna work it out amongst themselves as to, you know, okay, I'll take this passport, I wanna deal with this.
Right.
That kind of thing,
Well, and at
so
this point,
I think
it's
it's gonna balance
scheduled.
out.
So it's whenever you're scheduled to work is when the appointment has been made, and you come into work and, oh, I've got 7 passports today.
Mr. Chairman, it sounds like the board needs to make a decision, and I'm not saying it needs to be here tonight, right now, whether or not to, compensate that 4th passport position, but it sounds like the, library director is okay with not having it compensated, but I think the board should still decide
Yes,
if they're going to.
And I
or not.
only ask that because the budget we submitted includes budgets for 3 people. I mean, stipends for 3 individuals and not 4. So I just need to know to fix it. That's really what this vote would tell me.
So my concern still is fairness. For example, the 3 of us are passport agents,
Right.
and the bulk of the appointments are made with 2 people, and the other person only has 1 or 2. Well, and let's say that there are 10 appointments made. Well, the person that only does 2, because that's when they were scheduled, is getting paid the same as the other 2. It just, to me, doesn't make sense.
And
That's what I'm concerned about.
Understand that. Here in Town Hall, we were supposed to have 3. We had only 2 for my entire career here in Dayton. One of those people was out for an extended period of time, like 12 weeks, and the last person did it all for 12 weeks, and there was no change in the, in the.
I understand that was a unique circumstance, but we're establishing how we're gonna pay them under normal circumstances, and that's, my only concern is, those 3 people are not there every day, because it's by appointment, and I know we discussed with Joe McCardle, this additional work and all of that, and I don't want somebody to, the person, for example, if we're the 3, all right, the person, or the person, one person has 2 appointments, the other 2 have the bulk of the other 10, they share the remaining 8, that there is a grievance that someone is not doing the same amount of work and getting the same pay, that's
So,
my
and
only
I can
concern.
understand that, but I don't think it'd be a problem. I mean, $25 a week, it's all gonna be a wash, because it's not like they're making the appointment per person. Like, it's not like they're saying, oh, we're gonna stick Selectman Goulart with 9 people on Tuesday, ha-ha.
Who
Like,
controls the appointments?
it's whenever they call in. So if a
Whoever
person
answers the
calls
phone is
in
fine.
and answers the phone, oh, they're really only checking to make sure that library programs are not going on at this time.
Okay.
Because that takes one staff person is totally dedicated to that program and cannot cover the desk or do anything else to serve as backup, I guess, to the passport processor. It's really only a logistical thing for space and having people available to continue services. It's not.
I don't see a grievance coming with this, quite frankly. I think they're gonna work it out amongst themselves. I'll do this one, you do the next one. So I really don't see that there's a problem. If there is a grievance file, we'll deal with it. But I just think if we're gonna start paying per passport, for example, or making sure everybody does 3 that week, everybody does 3, I think it's gonna, we're nickel and diming them, so
Well, and then you might have an even number.
Yeah,
So
so-
someone's
Do we
gonna end
know,
up doing an extra one.
Is there, does it ever occur that there are 2 people present who can do it? In other words, if there's a large bulk of appointments on a
Yes.
Monday, would there be 2 people present to share the load, so to speak?
They're all certified to be able to do this, so yes, absolutely.
And they can anticipate capacity because of the
Right.
appointment
And then-
scheduling, so it's
exactly.
easier to
Well, that's
accommodate.
Like if there's a vacation and they're running short, you know,
Mhm.
I like the idea of the appointments. I actually support them, because I've seen it when it's just total chaos.
May I make a point on that, actually, in this, I was thinking of this as the discussion sort of evolved, is that I understand the point to fairness, and I agree with that. However, the nature of the way that things have always been regarding passports was probably not fair in the sense of the agent who processed the application and took the pictures was just whoever was available.
Right.
Was my understanding. So if the assistant assessor was busy, then that fell upon the administrative assistant, who was Mrs. Brady. And then, so it was always a matter of who had the capacity to take on that person who came to the window. And so, we've always struggled, just by the nature of the passport process,
Well, and
with who's gonna do it.
the mere fact that Wednesday nights were a designated time, you meet Wednesday nights. I mean, Karen is taken up, she's busy, and she was
would
still
spend-
processing
Correct.
when we had that
Correct.
special circumstance. So I think that it's actually kind of you in general, maybe this is my cheapness, but that it's kind of you, the town, to recognize the work that goes into a passport and that you're offering a stipend to begin with, I think is saying something. And I think that just a flat 25, because it's going to be a wash. It's just, week one, maybe it's heavy on me. Week two, maybe it just falls that people need it on a Thursday and I don't work Thursdays. But I've sort of been evened out by that following week. So I think
If it works out, I think it would be, if the library director would just kind of monitor that.
Sure.
It was not my idea to pay per passport. My only contention was, it's gotta be fair. And we don't want it dumped on
Yeah.
one person.
I think
So-
that, I agree with Chairman Pacheco that if there's a problem, we're gonna handle it. We're a very open employer, and I think that you have it on record right now. You desire this to be a fair process, so there's their notice that, yes, we will work with you if it's not working out.
Okay.
I just also wanted to add, if I can get the final word, Mr. Chair.
This is the final word.
It feels like a talk show. That I think what it sounds like with the establishment of the appointment schedule, we're actually getting more to a place of fairness rather than just whoever shows up and needs the passport processed and whatever personnel is free is the one who does it. I think with the appointment schedule, it's actually getting more to a place of fairness, so I'm okay with this.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion,
Miss-
hopefully.
I'm just trying to think, give me a moment. Mr. Chairman, I entertain a motion to approve the continued stipend for the 3 passport positions,
Retroactive to,
Retroactive to,
retroactive to,
was it April 1st?
I think it
Yeah.
was April 1st.
Are we, we're totally in sync right now? Yeah, I think it was April 1st.
retroactive back to April 1st of 2019.
Is there a second?
I'm thinking, there's something I want to amend it. Do you have that written down? Can you read it again, please? Approve the continued stipend payment.
I don't have it written down.
Passport positions retroactive to April 1st.
I want to, as a friendly amendment, approve the continued stipend payment of $25 per week.
Friendly
Accept that
amendment
amendment.
accepted,
Is there ever an unfriendly amendment?
right?
Well, they can be.
Like,
Frenemy
would you
amendment.
ever say as an unfriendly amendment?
I think the difference is, a friendly amendment
It's
is
passive
when,
Okay, we're going way over.
I'm sorry, I'll ask you
So-
later.
a second.
Did you second this motion?
Yeah, I second it with the
With the
friendly,
amendment.
because he said that was
Yes.
okay. That's
Any-
what makes it friendly.
Any further discussion?
I'm sorry.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? No abstentions? It passes. And that's retroactive, which is great. New business, recommendation from ZBA for new appointment. Did we get something?
Off the press, yes.
Answering my question before I even asked it. Thank you,
It's
Mrs. Brady.
anticipation.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chair.
I am like roasting in here. Is it just me? I am just like,
No, I think it's the contrast with your office.
the ice box
Which-
over there.
Which is like a scene
Okay,
out of Winter Fell.
What's the rendering date?
April 1st.
April 1st, okay.
Okay, so we just got a communication from the ZBA, stated April 17th, they met tonight, 2019, to the Office of the Select Board, Selectmen Board. See, I'm already going Select Board. On April 17, 2019, at 6:45, the Zoning Board of Appeals met with the Zoning Board applicant, Mr. Peter Karen, during their special meeting. Mr. Karen outlined a wealth of knowledge and experience with which would be an asset to the Zoning Board. He has been on the Zoning Board and has served as chairman in Dayton for 17 years in the past. The Zoning Board of Appeals recommends Mr. Peter Karen for a position on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Just a little clarification, he wasn't chairman for 17 years, but he was a member of the board for 17 years. And submitted by the chairman, Zachary Karen. And we do have a letter from Mr. Karen, dear Honorable Selectmen, if possible, may I be appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals. My past 17 years of experience makes me an ideal candidate to serve on the board.
May I make a suggestion? Since this is part of the packet, do we have to read these every time?
Oh, no, you don't. That's a
Chairman's
decision
this
of the
call,
board,
right?
right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. This little note on the bottom says that they accept Mr. Karen's letter to the ZBA and to give it to the BOS for recommendations. Which Mr. Karen's letter do they accept? I'm assuming they voted on this one, which was a draft that had to have been prepared before the meeting actually took place and based upon this vote. But is it to accept Mr. Peter Karen's letter and give it to us for a recommendation?
Where's,
I know that probably sounds foolish to everybody
no,
at
I
home.
understand what you're saying. Accept Mr. Karen's letter to the ZBA and give it to the Board of Selectmen. Where is that letter?
I think it's this one.
I think it's this one.
That's Mr. Peter Karen's letter.
I think you just gave that same one to the zoning
But
board.
what we want is not your recommendation. We are looking for the ZBA's recommendation
They should have voted
to
to
recommend him.
recommend his appointment to the Board of
Like you
Selectmen.
said, the Zoning Board of Appeals recommends Mr. Peter Karen for a position on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Correct, yeah, no, they did, it
But-
was just awkward because
This
his letter was not addressed specifically to the zoning board, but I don't think, I think it's very clear what the intent is, I didn't mean to.
No, I'm just saying, the town accountant has trained me well. Jen, if you're watching, I am now anticipating her questions. So I know she's gonna say
I understand,
which
but-
one.
But we don't
But-
need to get hung up on, you know,
Was there more than one
syntax.
vacancy or just one?
There are
There's
two
There are
vacancies.
two vacancies.
Oh, so we still, because I noticed here we've got it
Yep,
listed.
There are
Yep,
two
right.
vacancies,
Oh,
Mr. Bob
okay.
Adams and Mr.
Rhines.
Rhines.
Oh, that's right. Oh, okay.
So my concern, I'm not sure if we can, how we can deal with it, but I wouldn't want two members, and I believe they live in the same household, to be on the same, hear the same case or to vote on the same case. So the way the zoning board works, they pick 3 members. There's a 6-member board, they pick 3 members. And I was wondering if there's some way that we can make sure that they're both not on the same case.
I don't think that's within our purview. And they both served together before, with you
Both.
maybe.
Mr. Karen was the chairman, yes. I was
But
on the board.
Wasn't his son on the board?
Yes, he was.
So I think that's something that the ZBA is going to have to deal with when a case comes up. I don't think the Board of Selectmen can say to them, make sure you don't have 2 Mr. Karens on the same case.
I will agree that we can't demand them to do anything, agreed, right? They have their own, we do appoint them, but then once they're on the board, you know, they're governed by the
Their
zoning
policies.
bylaws, okay?
Right.
But what I will say is, and what I will support, is us sending a memorandum to them politely requesting what the chairman has outlined. Because I know we cannot demand them to do it, but we can ask them. And that I will support.
Yes.
Do we have a conflict of interest policy that would apply there? There's a state law.
State law.
So, I mean, if it were me, if I were one of the Karens, I would be calling the Ethics Commission for just a little bit of advice. What do you do?
I would think the current Mr. Karen, who is the chairman, would have to be the person that checked, because he's the one that's currently serving. And at a minimum, if he did, I would hope he would fill out that form and give it to the town clerk saying, I checked and everything's fine.
They both would need to, if this appointment is made, they both need to have something on file. Because there would be, yes, absolutely. If they're, living in the same household, that's even, in my opinion, more cause for concern. So I would want to have guidance from the Ethics Commission about protocols, I guess, or certain protections to, what if one was on the phone and the other is like there? They'd have to remove themselves and make sure that they're alone and put certain safeguards in process so that the other doesn't hear his opinion.
If both of
So,
them
yeah.
do that, and both of them file a statement, even if the statement says, I checked with ethics and they said I can serve, and it's filed with the town clerk, it will make sure that in future action of the ZBA, anyone who might be unhappy with a decision can't say, I think you
Right.
violated ethics,
And
because
that's-
we'll be on file. that
That's
it's-
my big concern right there, because what is every, you're going to the ZBA to grant special permission for something. So if you're fighting the decision, that's like an easy target, right? Oh, well, you two are in cahoots, because
Trying to
you
get the
can make
decision
something
thrown
up.
out on ethical whatever. Yeah, I understand what
So-
you mean.
And that's
I
the
would like them to,
appearance form.
yes, I
That's
would
what
like
they'll
them to
probably recommend.
contact, that's my request.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we delay, action on appointment of Mr. Peter Karen to the Zoning Board of Appeals until such time as both Mr. Peter Karen and Mr. Zachary Karen contact the State Ethics Commission for guidance, and that they file an appropriate statement with the town clerk relative to their status of serving on the board at the same time.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, ayes have it. So we will send to the ZBA, the chairman of the ZBA.
I'm gonna call him, I'm gonna have a,
Okay.
conversation.
On the new business B, complete new payment designation for the form, the Board of Selectmen. So do we have to vote on this then? Do we,
New leadership, new form.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve and sign the new, payment designation authorization form as presented this evening.
Is there a
I
second?
will second that motion.
Any discussion?
It says the persons listed, I'm wondering why we have to do this, because it's the same three people, even though you're designating the same three people that were already designated, and all that changed is the position of two of them. Why does that matter? It's the same, the designation is for the person, not the role. The same
No,
three
that's not
people.
true.
So when I do
But
up
it
a,
doesn't mention any of that in the form.
If
It just
I-
says, the persons listed below are hereby individually designated to approve payrolls and/or bills from payment from the department budget listed above.
so probably if you never reference the positions, you'd be all set, but where they've been previous practice. So if I did up a contract for the Plymouth event or whatever, let's just pretend we were putting one in here, the chairman is who I would have sign
Okay,
that.
so I
So-
have the perfect solution. Let's just approve it tonight, but take out the position,
Eradicate
so
the
we never have to
position.
do this again.
Oh, it's done annually, I believe.
Annually,
Yeah.
if the board
It's
changes.
done every time the board changes.
The other thing
What
is,
is
I
Jen-
think we have to have a record of who is actually holding the positions at the time the vote is taken,
We can
because
look into that.
we had Dr. Z.
Mhm.
There was something that only the clerk of the board could sign.
That was it was related to the police station, I recall that.
Oh, and that's
And-
when you bond and you
Correct.
sign your life away.
So because I remember you saying, why am I signing this? And I
Correct.
says, because they want the clerk to sign. And there would be a record that the clerk, at the time that that document was signed, was
I
my
feel,
only thought.
I kind of like doing this. I know that the town accountant will want this. I like doing this because you do allow the board to sign bills without a majority. And this is the form that allows you to do that. even though it doesn't have this, but I think it's necessary. I think it's necessary for contracts and some other items that come up. It's fairly
I didn't
simple.
mean to
I
make
know,
it
I
like
know,
a
I was
big-
just gonna say, it's a
I was
fairly
just trying
simple
to think of
thing.
the easiest
I do
way
think
to
the town
go.
accountant is going to want it. I really do
Oh,
think
yes.
that,
Yeah, no, I'm fine with the way it is. You know, I was selectman for a week, you took my desk away. Now I'm chairman for a week, you want to take the chairman away in this form here. And we wouldn't have had a long conversation unless you brought it up, all these, your concerns. So this really is a pretty quick thing we can do every year, I think, anyway. So
the desk wasn't personal.
I'll entertain a motion, please.
I did a motion.
Oh, you didn't?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I think I already seconded it. but-
I think you did.
My apologies.
And then you, yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Ayes have it. Give me the form, we can start signing that form.
Is this the one?
Yes.
If you're okay, can I get started with a brief explanation of this next item
Sure.
on our agenda? So this is an application, I don't wanna call it an entertainment application. So Mr. Spellman, who was unable to be here today because he's out on vacation and unable to attend, he's looking to extend his auctioneer's license to his current property, extend it to 1886 County Street, which is of course the old Daddy-O's building, for this one day, which is May 11th. This is here before you without him being able to be present because our next meeting's not until May 8th, and that didn't really give him a lot of time to advertise that he would, his auction event. So he filled this entertainment application out, actually an error, because he did talk about another, I gave this to him because he talked about another event he was working on, and then he inadvertently filled out the wrong event on the wrong piece of paper. But to not be so bureaucratic, here I am explaining that this is just an extension of his auction license to the Daddy-O's property, which is 1886 County Street.
So we're not talking food,
Right,
alcohol, entertainment?
nothing crazy is happening. It's just an auction, a little bit closer to the road.
So this is only for this one event on May 11th?
Yes.
And so I guess my question is, and maybe I misunderstood something and I apologize, it has been a long week already. But I guess my question was, why are we receiving these now? Because he's had many auctions down there and I don't recall ever having to do one of these. And again, I may be
No,
misunderstanding the
he's
situation.
licensed at his facility. He bought the abutting property. He's looking to hold an auction at the regular property, but for this one day, he's gonna do an additional event auction at the Daddy-O's property. He's not licensed for
It's
that
all
right
part
now.
of the same,
His event is gonna be one, but he's not licensed at 1886
no,
County
I
Street, so he needs special
understand.
permission from you.
I understand that.
He is also, this is different material. He is heavy equipment and trucks and stuff. These classic cars, ATVs, motorcycles, this is different merchandise than I believe his license states.
And I was also gonna get to that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, I appreciate that.
Do we have any concerns? I know that,
I have a lot of concerns,
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
I remember wasn't a bulldozer, but the excavator that was over the guardrail, so.
He's moved it back. I talked to him about that. He's moved it back.
But he should have known, quite frankly,
Of
should have
course,
known that you
he's been
can't.
told.
that,
He's
you know,
actually
somebody
been
could
told.
have got in an accident, and that could have been some serious damage there, so.
I talked to him about my personal concerns about people walking across 138. I've talked to him about adding an additional detail. Right now, there's 2. I've talked to him about not allowing the details to maneuver from, like, they need to be at the entrances. Communicating to his clients that they need to park at his facility and not walk across a state highway. He was very amenable to taking on all of those things. We had a very positive conversation, but the backup is that if it continues, he'll be in front of you. A license is a privilege, not a right, and it's your right to take it away if problems can persist, so.
I think the offshoot of the auction that is good is that business at Alice's booms that day. Now,
Yes.
and they do go back and forth across the street, but I noticed there's a third officer added to the detail, so
So-
that's good.
This application, I wanted to get the police chief involved in commenting on the activities here. due to the public safety concerns. And so he's requested a third detail. Again, I spoke to Mr. Spellman about that because I share those concerns, and he was very amenable to doing that. So it was a positive meeting, and he did move the machines back.
Yeah, and I think that obviously we don't want to prohibit
Right.
business from going to get something to eat or a cup of coffee or something.
Right, exactly. And so business begets business. Everybody ends up benefiting. So this is a request for a specific auction at a specific location that he's not already licensed for. It's just on the wrong form, but the information's all there.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
So, no, I definitely understand that business is, in a lot of ways, the gift that keeps on giving. In that someone comes in to use this business, they stay a while, they get hungry, they go to, the restaurant next door. I understand. But what I will also ask the board to think of in the long term is how many businesses might not want to come because that business is there. So now I'm thinking, if we did have a downtown area down there, I hope what I'm saying is not controversial, but I'm just thinking in the long term, what ma and pop boutique wants to come down there and be next to a business that may not be aesthetically appealing to the type of people that would use that business. So I get a lot of complaints about this business. I'm being honest. I get the emails. It's a public record. I get text messages about this business. So it is quite exhausting, I will say.
I actually think that he should have, I said to him, what about having food on your side of the street? Because if they're hungry or they want to get a cup of coffee or whatever it is, I mean, how great would that be for the business that's right there? He does bring it's a lucrative, I know that it's not nice looking in the sense of like a nice beautiful building with a plaza, but it is bringing in some sizable tax revenue, so I think we can pass in zoning to address some concerns about what a business district might be. And the beautiful thing, there's lots of beautiful things about Dayton, of course, but the beautiful thing about us right now is that we have all these opportunities to create a town that we want, and we can plan. It's almost like a canvas, like a blank canvas. So we are at a crossroads of sorts. So I think we can have those conversations. Once you finish one of your goals, maybe this will be the next one, Selectmen office. We can talk about that, because I understand that, but I think he's actually trying to do, that Daddy-O's building he wants to demolish, which is a big win for the town, and I think we can work with him about the type of building he puts in there. He's willing to have a conversation, so I appreciate that. I appreciate when businesses are willing to work with the town in a positive way, and I'd like to, try to continue that relationship so that we can have a beautiful downtown that, I call it a downtown, but a beautiful commerce
We use that term very
that we
loosely.
can, be proud of and that we like.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the one-day entertainment application scheduled for May 11th, 2019 to Lawrence Spellman, North County Auctions at 1886 County Street, Dayton, Mass. 02715.
Second?
Any discussion?
Yeah, I would just say that when Mr. Spellman first came to town, he was welcomed with open arms. He was clear and upfront with what was going to be there. No, it's not the most beautiful sight to drive by, but I also think that we have to tread lightly when it comes to indicating what kind of businesses we want in the area. I think there's enough room on 138, especially if in fact we are able to build a town garage and that whole property goes up for sale.
Right.
But I'm thinking from the plaza that is undergoing great renovation and big improvement, and the gentleman that was in here tonight, and moving towards the 138 area, there's some good space there that could handle the kinds of shops you're thinking about,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Ayes have it.
Thank you. And again, I apologize that he wasn't able to be here, but I think you understand that we couldn't wait.
I didn't think there were any questions about that. Thought it was a one-day entertainment. Thank you.
Okay, approval of underground storage permits, we have 2 of them before us. Right?
Yep, I see two.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question regarding these two?
Is that the question you want to ask?
Were these were they supposed to check off new or amended license? Because neither did, so I was just confused about that. I wasn't sure if this was new or amended.
They're probably confused about it too, but
They are there.
They're new. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We need an address on one of these.
556 Somerset Ave.
He's got the stamp.
Yep, the
It's in the
stamp,
stamp.
yep.
Mr.
Speaking of our
Chair-
downtown, no, I'm just kidding.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the underground storage licenses for Reese's Auto Sales Incorporated at 556 Somerset Avenue, North Dayton, Mass. And
18.
what's the name of the other?
Dinesh Patel?
Yep, Mr. Patel, Dinesh Patel at 1866 County.
What's the name of that business?
Get more, is that Get More?
Is it, what did you say?
Isn't it Get More? Yes.
It
Yep.
was years ago.
Isn't it still?
It's value gas now,
Oh,
I
Value
believe.
Gas, that we approve the underground storage tank for Value Gas located at 1866 County Street, Dayton, Mass.
Is there
As presented.
Second.
any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, the ayes have it. Declaration of surplus equipment by the Cable Commission. So we have a request from the Cable Commission to, that they have some surplus equipment. It's marked for recycling. Everybody have an opportunity to look at the, so how do you, can you flip that? No?
Yeah,
No, you can't. Okay.
yeah, I looked at it before.
Yeah. Any questions about this?
This is like old computers.
That's
Yeah.
what, I don't even recognize like some of the words.
My only thought was wooden cases, are these storage cases that another department might be able to use? Does,
Cable?
are they as big as, for example, an apple box, you
Right.
know?
I'm not sure. They do know that if it's anything of useful life, that they can,
They would
you know,
tell us.
sell it or mark it for availability for the public, and they'd let us know, so I'm,
Just,
I know it's a good question to ask, but they would tell us if it can be used.
And they, I believe,
I'll defer to Cable.
well, I've had, you know, discussions when they were doing the upgrades.
Oh, here
and
we go.
I-
I love this, I love when they're
Instant.
Andrew, you have kept what you're still able to use, right?
Yes.
Okay.
What are the wooden cases? Can any other department in town use them for storage?
The wooden cases it held our server rack mounted, our like 80s monitors.
Are those the Trinitron
Yeah.
video cable monitors?
So they're not like an apple box or a crate like
No,
Stone
it's
Juice?
like a TV, it's almost like a TV case, but no
Okay,
other department would be able to use it.
okay, all right, that's fine. Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we approve and declare surplus the list of equipment dated April 3rd, 2019, as submitted by Dayton TV9.
Is there a second? I did notice that there's a power strip. Is a power strip, is that defective? Could that be used for, there's a power strip here, it says.
If it's still listed, I believe it is defective, yes.
That would be my only question.
Thank you for coming.
And also, you can't use the video cassette recorder? I'm just kidding.
And there's gonna be baby tapes?
What's the video?
I know, we should have like a
Or
table
the
of
analog
these things.
switchers? Yes,
What do you think this
analog.
does?
This stuff could be valuable, antiques.
To someone
Yeah.
30
We
years
should have one of those
ago.
wooden cases, we'll put the cassettes in it, we can put it in display.
In the police
In the
station.
police station.
I did have the same question regarding the wooden cases, so I'm glad that Mrs. Goulart brought that up. Any further discussion? We do have a motion right here. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the ayes have it. Specify poll numbers of National Grid projects on Wellington and Horton Street. We had 3 requests, I believe.
Yes, we had previously approved them replacing poles on Wellington and Horton Street. And when Mr. Ferry and I met with Ms. Malley from National Grid to talk about the flags, she purposely wanted a meeting because of the poles. And when she started talking about all these poles, I said, could you give us a list of all the poles? Because I don't believe we listed all these numbers, and now that I got it, it's like, wow. So, to further clarify the vote we took earlier, I make a motion that we approve relocation and/or replacement of the list of poles submitted to the town on April 17th, 2019 by National Grid.
I'm gonna second this.
And just
Do
to
have a
clarify, Mr. Ferry got a copy of this too, and obviously doesn't have any objections. But the other thing too is the people that live on these streets, information needs to be put out that this is a lot of poles.
Especially the Wellington.
So I just have a question, because this was a poll hearing that we had, and it came with a map. So I highlighted all the new ones, because that's what was specifically in question that night. But the residents are also given a map. So are there more polls going up than, or like, are there more changes? Is it more invasive than was it originally?
I don't
Like,
wanna
what
say
is
it's
the-
more invasive, because there are new poles and there are replacements. And on this, they've given us height, because during the meeting that Mr. Ferry and I had with her, I asked if these were going to appear to be like what you see on Center Street on the Aggie School farmland. Those are very tall. And so she talked about that. So, I mean, she's provided more information than we requested, but there are new poles and there are replacement poles. So
Right.
So I'm just confused by the conversation we're
it's a
having.
lot of
So
poles.
I definitely remember, I'll give you an example. This third request for Wellington Street with the big diagram with all the poles, I definitely remember this.
I do
remember
too.
the public hearing. I'm still happy to vote on it just in case tonight, but I definitely remember that. And the other thing is, we're talking about new poles, but I just want to be very clear. We're making a distinction between National Grid installing new poles versus like replacement poles, okay? But these are all dated January 2nd, 2018. So it's not like they've requested us to hear something new.
Right.
So I just
That's
want to
my
make that
question.
distinction.
I'm glad that you
No,
did.
no,
That's
there's
my question.
nothing
This is
new.
us tidying up and specifying the
Correct.
polls that
Yes.
are
We've
on
already
this
had
map.
hearings on
And
it.
this is the map that was sent to abutters.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I just
Yes.
clarify.
And like I said, I'm gonna support it because it's
I think the
cleaning,
reason-
cleaning up.
She specifically requested a meeting to talk about the project. We could have done the flags over the phone, but I think the whole thing was to give us more detail, and that's why I said, when she got through, could you just send us the list so it's in the file? And if anyone questions it, we'll say, here's the map and here's the list.
Right. Okay.
So we got the detail.
Thank you.
No, and I'm okay, and I appreciate this being on the agenda, but I definitely remember
Yeah.
that third
Right.
Wellington, and there, just for the public, for the people who live over there who might be wondering what this is, they're not proposing anything new that you didn't already hear back at the original hearing.
Right, and it affects Wellington Street, Horton Street, Old Wellington, and what looks like one pole on Williams, so.
Yep.
Thank you.
Get a vote?
Yep. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Ayes have it. Correspondence, we received an email. Please accept this email as my resignation from the Dayton Trails Committee. I was recently elected to the Dayton Water Commission Board. Congratulations. And I feel that I will be doing a disservice to the current trail members if I could not give them the proper time and commitment
Scary.
they are making good progress in only a short amount of time and can't wait to see what they come up with in the future. So do we have to have a motion to accept it?
Yes.
I'll entertain a
Mr.
motion.
Chairman, I make a motion, we accept the resignation of Jason Quinn from the Dayton Trails Committee, with thanks and appreciation for the time that he served.
I'm gonna second that motion.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstentions, the ayes have it.
Are there 2 vacancies on that
Yes.
committee now?
Yep.
There are 2 vacancies now. Announcements. The Dayton 101 will be held on April 25th at Old Town Hall at 6:30 PM. I believe some members of the board here will be over there, and other board members will be there for the public to ask any questions about what their duties are and what responsibilities they have. I encourage the public to attend. The Dayton Historical Society, just for your information, I am a member of the Dayton Historical Society. I am an officer. None of us get paid. I just want to make sure everybody understands that I am a member. The Psychic Fair, Saturday, April 27, 2019, from 10 to 5 p.m. at Old Town Hall, 1111 Somerset Avenue, Dayton, Mass. There will be a rabies clinic, Saturday, April 27, 2019, at North Dayton Fire Station, 132 Chase Street, from 2 to 3 p.m. $15 per immunization, cash only. Cash only. Town clerk will also be available for dog licenses, checks only. Next week is bulky item curbside pickup. It's the week of May. No, it is. Why did I think it was next week? I bought my sticker. I could put my refrigerator out there and somebody's gonna pick it up without me paying it $15.
It's
Look at a whole month I could have put it there.
Sure, it disappears on the night.
Yes.
Better clean it out before you put it out there.
And I think by law, I gotta take the door off. The week of May 20th through May 24th, tags are on sale at the Board of Health, 1111 Somerset Avenue, Dayton, Mass. For more information, call the Board of Health at 774-872-0943. There are vacancies on the following boards. The Trails Committee, there are 2 vacancies. The Zoning Board of Appeals, there is currently 2 vacancies, but we may be having one of those appointed at the next meeting. There's a Governance Committee. Some people have expressed an interest in the Governance Committee. Please get in touch with our Town Administrator
And
if
that's
you're
a
interested.
study committee, just for people watching.
Soil Conservation Commission, Land Use Committee, and Bylaw Committee. Are there any?
No, you beat me to the punch. I
Any
don't know
selectmen's
because
reports?
I feel like, no, this is for the committees.
Okay.
Are we doing that beautification committee with the idea that they're gonna maybe do a cleanup next year? But it will be a volunteer committee,
So
because I know
back
the
when we,
board tabled
right,
it.
so back when we first talked about this, I did ask people, if you're interested, let us know, and you can get it started, and then we end up putting you in touch with everybody else who expressed interest, but we haven't had that. We haven't had any interest for the bylaw review committee. I mean, I know that's not riveting stuff, but it's important work.
I would like to make a suggestion to the board, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman, that the bylaw committee, since bylaws kind of fall under governance, is there any way we could like consolidate those 2 ideas? Because we're not gonna get enough people
So
to do both.
I actually am not in favor of that because I feel like at this juncture, their missions are too separate.
But we've been
Their
waiting,
missions,
we
I
haven't
know.
got a single application,
know.
it's been like 7 months.
I
So
know.
I think we need to.
It's disappointing, but they need to meet to,
No, we should convince the people who wanna be on the town
I
governance
get
study
it.
committee to do this as part of it, cause they'll already.
gonna
I
trick you.
suppose they say no.
Not
Yeah.
trick you, they'll get a list.
I already said earlier tonight, it's gonna be a committee that's gonna end and go away, and
no, it's
not
not
even
bad.
They'll do one quick look and then.
So, I mean, I know, like, a bylaw committee, it's tough because you are gonna hear about a bylaw, and maybe you're not interested in the bylaw. Like, if it's a kennel bylaw, maybe you're like, oh, whatever, but, you're right, it has been vacant, nobody's
And it's not
expressed
anyone's
interest.
fault, I wasn't
Yeah.
saying that
Oh,
as
no,
if
I
it's
know,
someone's
just-
fault.
Okay.
maybe we can assign it to the cemetery commission.
Talk to Chris about that. Selectmen's reports? Any selectmen's reports?
I don't have anything formally, but if it's okay, Madam Administrator.
Of course it's okay.
We did have a meeting, this morning, it was just, the Town Administrator, Jason Quinn, who served on the Green Communities Grant Committee, myself, the Building Commissioner, and Seth Pickering, who is about to be our former Regional Coordinator for the Green Communities Program. We have some tidying up to do with the designation application. Now, we already have the money, the $146,000, but For example, we did get some feedback that the program would not pay for things like window replacement. So we have to, we're still gonna pursue the electric charging stations, the attic installation, as well as the
furnace.
HVAC, the
Yeah.
furnace issue. So I just wanted to make this, bring this to the board. That's why we hadn't heard back in terms of like, hey, we're handing the check, you know, everything is official. So we just have a little tidying up to do. We do need to work with Energy Source. We may have to write a couple things, although the town administrator did do a really good job on getting everything written in terms of the scope, so we have a framework. We need to get some energy and cost savings figures specifically from Energy Source regarding those 3 projects. These projects, if we go through Energy Source, will not be subject to like competitive bidding, for example. So we do just have a couple things to figure out, and I just want the board to know we will bring it back to the board to keep us in the loop. We may also, though, as I understand, since we did vote specifically as a board to fund with the grant money, the window replacement, we might have to, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, reconsider that, drop that idea.
But will we be able to add something else then, to replace that, to what, no?
I just think there's not enough, you know,
So
money.
the HVAC system, I think is going to eat up a lot of the funding, which is good because it's a major thing. It's a major efficiency thing. But I think the windows were a stretch.
And they were,
It was,
the grant already wasn't gonna
Yeah.
pay for all the windows to
Right.
be replaced.
so it's, I think it's working out how it should. And then he said, so the money is ours. If we don't use up everything, it's still available, but our group today decided we're gonna focus on these specifically.
But I would just, in going forward, I would ask the board still consider at some point in the future, if we are gonna make energy improvements via that grant designation in this building, that we not proverbially like throw the money out the window by not doing the windows, because it almost is kind of nonsensical to increase energy efficiency in the building and then have it go out the window because of poor insulation and things like that. So I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman.
Can any of the money be used for the air conditioning of the hall next door? No?
So the money has to be tied into some way, in some way to the established goals and plans listed on the
plan.
energy report,
Okay.
energy reduction plan. And it doesn't have to be an item on the plan, but tied in some way, which I did attempt to do with the windows and clearly failed.
Because they are going to use those, I call them dual units that are
Right.
efficient, energy efficient, and,
Dual duct.
you know, yeah, you know the kind I mean.
I think that the Green Communities Group would, not our group, the state group would view that as a capital project that
Oh,
the
I
town
see.
would be responsible for funding.
Okay.
Based on our conversation today, which was very helpful to get in their mindset about what they're thinking about when they review it. So if I were Seth, like I would look at that like that's a capital project, that's something you need to fund on your own.
Where is he going and who's gonna replace him?
Sure. He's going to the Department of Environmental Protection. I forget which division he said.
The
He
one
did
that,
mention it.
air quality.
Air quality.
But he joked that he's not gonna be able to help us anymore. He'd be like the bad guy that we don't wanna
I was
see.
just gonna say.
We're not
he's-
gonna wanna get emails from him
He's,
anymore.
in a different
He
role.
doesn't,
Right.
he doesn't know who is going to replace him yet. But he will keep us in the loop, and whoever replaces him will be as helpful as he has been. I will also mention to the board that I'm gonna look into the REPA grant, which is like Regional Energy, we got the META grant, the Municipal Energy Technical Assistance, to become a green community and to do that process. So we're gonna see if they can help us maybe get this designation grant application in.
Serpent actually called, so Seth must have contacted
Oh,
him,
nice.
because Serpent called and left a message for us during our haywire phone issue, but,
And they helped with the energy reduction plan. Thank you,
That's in the
Mr.
works.
Chairman.
Do we have
Updates to
any
come.
acknowledgements?
We do not.
approval of the minutes, February 27th. Did everybody get to review the minutes with the changes?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, if you're entertaining motions, I will make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen of February 27th, 2019.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept for review the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen on March 13th, 2019.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it.
I just wanted to make one remark, if it's okay. For people who actually look at the minutes, I did archive them. They are not missing. We are not hiding anything. They are in the View Archives page on the website, and it does go back to about 2010. So just letting you all know. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Good to know.
Approval of the warrants.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the following warrants be approved. 42A-19 in the amount of $89,502.65. 42B, that's payroll. 42B-19 in the amount of $122,903.52. And 42C-19 in the amount of $86.96, the last two being accounts payable, all dated April 17th, 2019, be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Public input?
Just
No.
a reminder to everybody, if you have questions about the Town Governance Study Committee, please get in touch with Mrs. Aaronstein for details.
So our next regular Board of Selectmen's meeting is May 8th at 6:30. And I would like to wish everybody a happy Easter and Passover for those that celebrate.
Absolutely. And thank you, Cable, as always.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second?
All those in
Let's
favor
get
say
outta
aye.
here.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Cable. Good night.
And good luck. Every time you guys say that, I think that. Good night and good luck.
Yeah.